Now for tonight's guest. Ayaan Hirsi Ali was raised a Muslim in Somalia but fled her home to escape a forced marriage and moved to Holland as a refugee. She eventually became a member of the Dutch Parliament and denounced Islam after the September 11 terrorist attacks. She's campaigned against the religion ever since, arguing it promulgates a flawed and violent culture. After Ayaan Hirsi Ali and filmmaker Theo van Gogh made a film about Muslim women called Submission, an Islamic extremist murdered van Gogh, and death threats forced Ayaan Hirsi Ali into hiding in 2004. She's had a permanent bodyguard ever since. She's currently in Australia to promote her latest book, Nomad, and she joined me in the Sydney studio a short time ago. Thank you very much for coming in to speak to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
In Nomad, you write that a lot of well-meaning people in the West have trouble accepting that all human beings are equal, but all cultures and religions are not. Elaborate on that for us.
I took notice of this when I was a member of the Labour Party in the Netherlands, and I would talk about the position of Muslim women in the Netherlands. And so many of the enlightened liberal people around me would respond by saying, but we've got to respect their culture. And when we talked about the specifics of what it was that we had to respect, it boiled down to forced marriages, honor killings, female genital mutilation, the forced veiling of women. I'm not talking about those who choose to do it, but those who are forced to do it. We would ignore all of this, do nothing about it, and the only rationalization that these people could give me, and these were people in power, was to say, but we've got to respect their culture. And I thought, yeah, cultures are not equal. It's individual human beings who are equal. And if we're talking about, Holland is a very egalitarian society, so are the other European countries. If we want to discuss equality before the law for immigrants and natives, men and women, homosexuals and heterosexuals, then we have to first and foremost acknowledge the individual human being, regardless of colour and whatnot, regardless of culture and whatnot.
The argument that I've heard your critics make in response to that is that, well, all cultures and societies are flawed and have their problems.
That's true. All cultures are flawed, but what I learned in the last 18 years when I came to the West is Western flaws, the white man's flaws, his sexism, his racism, his prejudices have been criticized and radically changed. The white man is no longer as racist as he was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But men of color, and I'm not talking only about men who are Muslim, but I'm talking about Chinese, Indians, men of color, are excused from that same critical scrutiny of cultures, their customs, their habits, their religious principles. And so again it boils down to, yes, all cultures are flawed, but if we want to aspire to a society, whether it's on a national level or on the global level, of individual rights and respect for human rights, then we have to criticize these other cultures just as much as the white man's culture was criticized. That's good for it.
You also argue in your book that there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is I try to separate Islam from Muslims. Muslims as individuals, and each and every research shows that people who identify themselves as Muslim don't know very much about what's in the Quran. They don't know very much about what the Prophet Muhammad said. They've only been taught you've got to obey the Quran and what the Prophet Muhammad said, and they're both infallible. The book is infallible, the Prophet is infallible, the founder of Islam. And increasingly, agents of radical Islam take advantage of that. But if you scrutinize Islam as a moral philosophy, I'm not talking about the